Hello, welcome to the session 4 of Unit 5. Here we are going to talk about cross price elasticity of demand. The word elasticity is not easy to pronounce. Alright, it is very useful to know how the consumption of a good is affected by a change in the price of a related good. How sensitive is the quantity demanded of one product, say Coke, to a change in the price of a second product, say Sprite? Do you know that? How sensitive is that? Now, to what extent will a lower price and increased sales of Sprite reduce the sales of Coke? Have you thought of that before? In this session, we are going to throw light on such questions. So at least you have an overview of what the session is going to address. And so by the end of the session, we believe that you should be able to define cross price elasticity of demand and compute the coefficients for it. For it, the it is talking about what? Cross price elasticity when given relevant data. So we give you data and ask you to find the coefficient of the cross price. We are going to ask you to find the what? Cross price elasticity of demand. You should also be able to distinguish between substitute goods and complementary goods. We've been mentioning such terms over the previous slides. I don't know if you have been previous session. I don't know if you want made time to search about what substitutes and complementary goods are. However, let's start with the concept of cross price elasticity of demand. Now, the concept of cross price elasticity of demand measures how sensitive consumer purchases of one product, say X, are to change in the price of some other product, say Y. So we want to know how sensitive are you how sensitive are you to buy Gary with respect to change in price of say rice? That's what we are talking about. So we will calculate the coefficient of the cross price elasticity of demand, say EXY. That's how we represent it. We represent it by EXY, just as we do for the coefficient of simple on elasticity, as we did in the other sessions before this, except that we relate the percentage change in consumption of X to percentage change in price of Y. You see, the other one we were doing, like, if we did for a particular commodity, so we say change in, let's say, X, then we'll say X naught, then we'll say times, uh, we'll say divided by changing price of what? Price naught, and then this we made it change in X over X naught times price naught over what? Change in price, which we established a formula for elasticity of on price demand to be this. This X can be Q. However, in this case, what we are saying here as in percentage change in the consumption of X to percentage change in the price of Y, means that we are, instead of P naught, we are going to be dealing with what? P Y. So we may deal with, let's say, we can say change in QX over QX, right? But we are going to deal with the price of the other commodity. So we deal with changing, say, divided by changing PY divided by PY. That's what we are talking about. So take note of this formula for the cross price elasticity. EXY is going to be percentage change in price of product Y over percentage change in quantity demanded of product what? X. Price of Y, quantity of product what? X. Okay. Now we want to extend the formula in a way. We are going to have something like change in, say, QX divided by QX, or divided by change in PY over what? PY. This is going to be like this. we'll change the division sign to multiplication. I'll have this, and I can now have change in qx over change in py times py over qx. Okay, that is going to give us our elasticity or cross price elasticity of demand. This formula gives the point cross price elasticity of demand between x and y. Conveniently, we will use the arc price or cross price elasticity. Remember the arc price elasticity of demand. What were we doing? We were using the average, right? So here we want to also take advantage and use something similar. We want to use the arc price cross price elasticity technique for computing cross price elasticity of demand between two price levels. And so we are going to be using the averages. So now that is going to give us EXY equal to what is going to be the change if I have two different quantities. So it will be QX2 minus say QX1. Alright. Then I would have to add, we want to find the average, so it will be qx2 plus what? Qx1. This will be divided by 2. Now we'll do the same for the price, so py say 2 minus py1 all over py2 plus py1 over 2. We change the division sign to multiplication. This is somehow like qx2 minus qx1 over qx2 plus qx1 over 2 times py2 plus py1 over 2 divided by py2 minus py1. Now this is going to give me qx2 minus qx1 divided by py2 minus py1, which is equal to multiply by py2 plus py1 over 2, all divided by qx2 plus qx1 divided by 2. The two will be cancelled when we do some further analysis. We end up getting qx2 minus qx1 and py2 minus py1 times py2 plus py1 divided by qx2 plus qx1 as our arc cross price elasticity technique for two price levels. Alright, so the qx2 is the quantity demanded of x after price change in y. The qx1 is original quantity demand of x, and the py2 is the new price for product y, and py1 is original price for product y. So let's take an example here. So for example, suppose that price of Sprite, say P1, PY, price of Sprite increases from 1,800 to 2,000 cedis per bottle. As a result, the quantity demanded of Coke, say QX, increases from 500 bottles to 600 bottles a month at a local drinking bar. We want to compute the arc cross price elasticity of demand. So we are going to use the formula here. So we have EXY equal to 600 minus 500 divided by 2000 minus 1800 times 2000 plus 1800 divided by 600 plus 500. That is going to give us 100 over 200 times 3800 divided by 1100. When you point this on your calculator, you are going to have 1.73. And this indicates that 1% increase in the price of Sprite will lead to 1.73% increase in the quantity demanded of Coke. We are going to look at how to interpret the cross price elasticity of demand and bring the session to an end. Okay, how do we interpret the cross price elasticity of demand? So the cross price elasticity of demand may be positive. The one we just solved was a positive value, but you have to know that it can be positive or negative. Now, if it is positive, that is the quantity demanded of X moves in the same direction as the change in price of Y. Then X and Y are substitute goods, as it is the case in our Sprite and Coke example that we just solved. The higher the cross price elasticity, the closer the substitute the relationship, or the closer the relationship of the substitutes. And when the cross price elasticity is negative, an increase in the price of one commodity decreases the demand for the other commodity. So the two will be called complementary goods other than substitutes. For example, an increase in the price of cameras will decrease the amount of film purchases. The larger the absolute value of the cross price elasticity coefficient, the greater the complementary between the two goods. Now we will talk about a zero or near zero cross price elasticity. This suggests that the two products are unrelated or they are independent goods. For example, is trucks and sports car. We cannot compare these two cars. They may be in the same product range, but the change in the price of one is unlikely to have an impact on the quantity demanded of the other. This brings us to the end of this particular session. Thank you.